Welcome to the Forge, my wanton wildlings. I'm your creepsmith, and I hope you like my work. Welcome back, wildlings, and my humblest apologies for being away. Brevity, they say, is the soul of wit. This can, it seems, also be applied to pastas. So tonight's reading is 3 short shocks, 2 dreams, and 1 alarm. Normally that would be just a bad night for some poor schmuck. But, as always, this is something worse. 4:03. It was 4:03 in the morning and I woke up screaming. It was my dream. In my dream, I watched everyone I ever knew or loved be killed by a creature. It had a short, fat body and long, slender arms which ended in claws that looked more like swords. Its eyes were slits that glowed red in the darkness, and its teeth were long like horns and sharp like steak knives. It looked at me before it killed them, and laughed each time before it ripped apart my loved ones with those sharp, horrible claws. How had it found us? It tricked me into letting it into my home by mimicking the voice of my father. It couldn't come in without permission, it told me, after it ripped out my mother's heart. The dream ended with the creature laughing its evil cackle and slowly walking towards me, dragging its claws on the floor. I screamed and sat up. I was in my room, in my bed, safe again. 4:03. I hear a knock at the door and I freeze up instantly. "Tommy, I heard you screaming. Are you all right?" I heard my mother say. "What a relief. Mom's here." "I'm fine, Mom. It's just a bad dream," I replied, the relief washing over me. "Okay, honey. I got you a glass of water. Do you want it?" Mom said back to me. "Sure. Come in," I said. And as those words left my mouth, I remembered that it was September, and I'd moved back to my college dorm 3 weeks ago. Emergency Alert System. When I was about 12, I had an odd fear of emergency broadcast systems. I never really understood why, but one night at age 14, things got really bad. Around 1 a.m., I saw an alert for a storm coming in at around 2 o'clock. I was home alone, nobody else was around, and all of the lights were out except for the light of the television. I felt very uncomfortable. I heard the announcer's voice say, "If you're outside, get to a shelter fast." After that, the silent alert just stayed on the TV for an awkward 30 seconds or so. But then it started glitching up. The screen started showing pixel scramble all over the television. I don't know what was disturbing about it, but I was too shaken to even lie down. I guess I was just kind of soft. The alert had interrupted a show that had just started, so I assumed it was just the 2 signals mixing. Then, out of nowhere, I heard a bunch of scattered beeps, static, rings, all sorts of broadcast test sounds mixed together. I saw black and white pixels making all sorts of commotion on the screen, and for a few seconds, it looked like it was making faces, and not like the 2-dot and a curved face. They looked like the faces of real people. Well, as real as you can get for solid black and white anyway. I could swear there was a faint moaning drowned out by static coming from the TV. It sounded like a woman or maybe a younger child. Suddenly I heard a noise that sounded like a computer would make if it was glitching out. It was soft at first, but then I could hear a bunch of loud, scrambled white noise. The lights in my house were flickering on and off, and the room was getting really hot. I even recall one of the lights blowing a fuse, while the wind outside was just crazy. The whistle sound it made was curiously loud, almost as if there was a tornado somewhere really close. All that was in my head at that moment was nothing more than, what the fuck? But then the television screen went black and restarted the warning, but nothing wrong happened this time. It ended normally with 2 long beeps and 3 short beeps. 20 minutes later, the TV issued another warning, but at the end, it said something out of the blue. If you're outside, get to a shelter fast and get down to the lowest part of the building. But it's no use. Then, shortly after the 3 beeps, the power went out. I sat there numb with goosebumps. My mind jumped to all sorts of conclusions. I got up off the couch, grabbed a flashlight, and ran to the basement. As I crossed the hallway, a whisper caught my ear, and I felt a small breeze blowing. When I got to the stairs, I saw 2 gleaming eyes at the bottom, glaring at me almost like a cat's eyes. My flashlight immediately dimmed out, and I tried turning it back on, but to no avail. I just sat there shaking like a leaf, beating on my flashlight. It seemed like there was no light left in the world at that moment, and I froze in fear as I felt something cold touch my shoulder. I almost died out of fear right then, but I passed out. I don't know what happened next, but I'll never forget that day. A warning. I'm doing this for you, and for Mike too, I guess, though I don't think there's much I can do to help him at this point. I suppose I should provide some background information first. I'm a sophomore at a fairly good university in Boston. No, not that one. Or the other big one. But still, one that's a bit of a chore to get into. My freshman year, I had the option to live in honors housing and decided to roll with it. After all, at least the people would be interesting, right? Whatever arcane algorithm they used to process roommate requests took in my preferences and spat out the name of my future roommate, Mike. Just another random honors kid from St. Louis. The two of us got along fine for most of freshman year. My slightly embarrassing enjoyment of Miley Cyrus notwithstanding. So we decided to room together in sophomore year as well. Now, Mike had always been a pretty obsessive guy. He tended to bounce around in his interests. One week he'd devour an entire series of anime, only to later start watching random online episodes of MST3K and then begin working his way through the archives of the hottest new webcomic. And, of course, like any real obsessive, he would keep me posted on his latest craze. Constantly. I humored him. I mean, what else are roommates for? Of course I did. One day, earlier this week, he started telling me random scary stories. You know, those things you find on message boards. I think his main source ended up being some site called Creepypasta. I never understood why pasta needed to be creepy, but whatever. I'd hear about a med student, like eating an arm, or someone being autopsied alive, or some random YouTube video that'll drive you insane. We usually had a good laugh about them. The third day of this obsession, however, things got weird. He threw a few more stories my way before hitting the sack, but something seemed a little off. His voice had an edge to it, really sharp. As the hour got later, his banter got more and more inane, as though he were just talking to stave off having to go to sleep. Eventually, I pointedly got into my bed and rolled over, effectively ending any further chance at conversation. Now, I wish I hadn't. I sleep like a log, and that night was no exception. I don't think I even came close to waking up. Usually I can't remember any of my dreams, but the nightmare I had that night has been clear in my mind for days now. I dreamt I was trapped in a fog so dense I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. The damp air sent chills down my spine. I could hear muffled screams in the distance. There didn't seem to be any words, just guttural shrieks of pain. Instantly, don't ask me how, I recognized the screams as Mike's. I tried my best to run to him, but my feet just slid in the fog. I couldn't get any real traction on the ground, if indeed there was any ground at all. The screams got further away and more distinct, though I could still tell that they were Mike's. Eventually, they faded into nothing, and I woke up. And every last trace of Mike was gone from the room. And I really mean everything. His laptop, his sheets, the official zombie survival guide poster on the wall, the heap of trash that he let accumulate on his half of the windowsill. Everything. A thick layer of dust coated his entire side of the room. Absolutely nothing on my side of the room had been touched, nor had any of his stuff in the bathroom, the kitchen, the living room of our suite. Only in the bedroom had anything been taken. I couldn't believe it. I prayed that this was a dream. I pinched my elbow until the skin was red, until my fingernails drew blood. But when I didn't wake up, what else could I do? I dialed campus security, who quickly brought the Boston Police Department. I was immediately kicked out of the room so they could go over everything with a fine-tooth comb. I think I must have been in shock. I felt completely numb, like nothing around me really mattered. I had left my laptop out in our suite's common room, so I used that to distract myself, or try to, at any rate. When I popped open the laptop, however, a Word document was staring at me. Its text was the following. I know this is stupid. I can't help but think how much I'll regret this in the morning, but for some reason, I'm genuinely scared, and I feel like this is the only way I can tell someone why. So, here goes. Earlier, I was scouring the net for short horror stories, rituals, tales of scary places, and the like. I came across this warning, I guess it was. I won't say what, and I won't say where for fear of you finding it yourself. Suffice it to say, it sent chills down my spine, something not much has managed to do so far. Still, as has become my habit, I just clicked on the next hyperlink, going ever further down the rabbit hole. The warning stayed with me, though, in the back of my head, just nibbling away until I would focus on something else to rear its ugly head. This was irrational, I knew. My mind was playing tricks on me. Some ancestral fear had been played upon, some age-old nightmare that was just that. A nightmare, no more, no less. But that didn't make the fear go away. Only when I looked at the clock to see how long I had until you got back, it dawned on me I had passed the time allotted me by the warning to stop what was coming. Any vagueness in this statement is out of concern for you, I promise. And then, the real anxiety kicked in. My palms started to sweat, and my eyes refused to stay closed for more than a second at a time. All my hairs stood on end, and I could feel my heart rate start to increase. Instantly, I knew that the warning had been real, and I had failed to heed it. My time was limited. It was about then that you got back from the TV station. I was so glad to see someone else. I can't imagine how I sounded, but finally someone was here to fight off the dark with me, a companion against the now terrifying night. But clearly you weren't interested. Your yawns were a dead giveaway. You headed to bed, being tired. I don't blame you. And I, to stave off sleep a little longer, decided to write you this. Do me a favor. If I'm wrong, forget that this ever happened. But if I'm right, you have to warn them. So that's what I'm doing. I'm warning you. All of you. Just be careful. The next time you go on an archive binge at creepypasta.com, or start checking the horror thread of your favorite discussion board, or even just try Googling creepy stories, if you feel a chill run down your spine at some warning that you've never read before, you might want to heed it. If you decide not to, if you just click on your merry way, please tell Mike that I'm sorry I couldn't get to him in the fog. The author of 403 goes by the moniker Hunter, and Emergency Alert System is credited to an anonymous author, but popularized by the narrator Dave the Useless. A warning also comes from an unknown author. Thank you for your time in listening this evening, however short it may be. Stay scary, my wildlings. Remember that to take time, you have to make time. And make the most of your nights.